South Metro Atlanta, the 100 Black Men of South Metro Atlanta. I would like to thank everyone tonight for joining, taking time out of your busy schedule so you can hear from these dynamic speakers that we have for you. I wouldn't be able to run this program without the help from Dr. Ladre Gilbert and his leadership. We have several dynamic speakers that you will be hearing from tonight. One will be the Vice President of Clark Atlanta, Sharice Peters. We will have Tamara Celeste and also Jael the Great from Spelman College. So please sit back and enjoy what you're about to hear from these speakers. Hello, everyone. How are you doing today?
Good, good.
Fantastic. How are you?
So far, so good. Again, I want to thank everybody for joining tonight. Again, we have a crowd here, and we are definitely looking forward to your input about college readiness for our future students. So, without any further ado, Ms. Sharice, Vice President Peters, will you please introduce yourself?
Absolutely. I am delighted to be here. Thank you to Mr. Fields for inviting me and to my panelists for being in the same space as you all. I'm always excited about being with colleagues and sharing ideas and talking about things that are important to us. So, again, I'm Sharice Peters. I'm the Vice President for Enrollment, Management, and Retention at the illustrious Clark Atlanta University in the AU Center, one of the beautiful schools in the AU Center. I see my colleague is here from Spelman. And just no long time for a bio, actually. I've been in higher ed for about 42 years. I have worked at several institutions, both predominantly white institutions and HBCUs. And I was actually retired. And when President French came to Clark Atlanta University, which I attended Atlanta University as a graduate student 42 years ago, I just felt the need to come back and continue the work and work with our students and our young people and our institutions because they're so important. So I'm delighted to be here today to answer any questions I can, to talk about what's going on with admissions these days, and really just really excited because we're talking most specifically about our young Black men and how we can get them into the academies and keep them there. And so anything I can do in that regard, I'm happy to do it. So thank you, Jared, for having me, and um, whatever you need.
Thank you, Tamara.
Hi, I am Tamara Celeste. A little bit about me. I was a former professional basketball player, and I played in college. I played in the WNBA. I played in Europe for almost a decade, and um, that was what catapulted me into the work I do now as a psychologist, because I understand the impact that the mind has on your emotions and your performance, whether it's performance as an athlete, performance as a father, mother, brother, sister, son, daughter, friend, student. I am just so forever intrigued by how delicate that connection is between how our mind is operating, our belief systems, our thoughts, our upbringing, and how that impacts the way that we feel, and it also impacts what we go out here and do and how we perform in every single area of our lives. And so for me, it was important to pay it forward. I kind of live my life with the philosophy of being the person that I needed when I was younger. And so in my work, I just, really just hold, people by the hand with that tough love and help them overcome any of those limiting, obstacles, whether it's mental, emotional, physical, spiritual, to help them overcome any of the challenges that they're facing so they can focus more on not what they do in life, but who they become. Because when you become the person you need to become, what you do just falls right in line with that. So that's kind of my approach to this work.
Wow, thank you very much. Jael?
Hello, peace and grace, everyone. I'm so glad to be here. This is such an honor and a blessing. Thank you for having me. Just quickly about me, I am an absolute lover of life. I love people. And I'm just here to serve. So I do that using my gifts and talents. I serve humanity using my gifts and talents, whether it's teaching, I act, I write, direct, and produce. My life coach, and as the goddess was saying right before me, I'm really big on mindset. Like when I talk to my students about life and about who they are, I'm always speaking life into them and watering them with beautiful words. I do something with men called Reclaiming Your Kingdom, because men need safe spaces to talk and to heal, and our young boys do as well. So I'm really an advocate for them, and just speaking life and reminding everyone of who they are, because that way you flourish and you grow. When you're walking in your authentic self, you can't help, like she said, you can't help but attract and be everything God has called and created you to be. So I'm just here to serve in whatever capacity y'all need me to serve in, and I look forward to a wonderful time. Thank you.
Thank you all for your introductions. And last but not least, we have our moderator, Mr. Troy Lewis. Troy, please introduce yourself to our guest.
Good evening, everyone. I hope that I am clear. Technical difficulties have taken over for a moment, but without struggle, there is no progress. So I am sure that our conversation tonight will lead towards lives being changed. And so I'm happy to be here with you all tonight. I want to first thank 100 Black Men of Atlanta for this work, because without this platform, without the initiative, we wouldn't be here this evening. So hats off to you all. And I also want to thank our panelists for doing all of the work that you've already done and sharing your insights with us tonight. I am Troy Lewis, originally from Jacksonville, Florida. My background, passion, and light in life is to change lives towards workforce development and college education in terms of college transition. And for the past 20 years, I have submerged myself into organizations and communities that required my services to make sure that anyone who wanted to go on to college or to chart a pathway for their career had access to resources. And so when I was presented with the opportunity to come and moderate this panel, I was completely thrilled, because the panelists, again, have the background, they have the knowledge and the skills, but more importantly, those who are paying attention tonight, those who tuned in, the students who want to go to college, the parents who are there sitting next to them, wondering what they should do next. This is really for you. And so throughout the rest of our time together, I want to make sure that you're listening intently, being clear about what it is that you want to make happen in your future, and take these resources, take this insight, and weave that into what your goals are. And it will happen. And a little bit more about myself. I've worked for public schools, nonprofits. I've worked within the federal government as well in Washington, D.C. for about 16 years. And I was able to change many lives by being in the classroom, being at the classroom students, and showing them what was possible with their potential. And so tonight, again, I want to make sure that everyone comes with listening ears and pen and paper, or you're going to type it into your phone. It doesn't matter. Just take notes some way, somehow. But I won't kill our time tonight with the intro, because we should get right into it, right? So when we think about college, we've just come out of, well, in some ways, we're still coming out of a pandemic, which has changed our lives several ways. And what we want to be able to do is think about, how has the college admission process changed over the past 2 years because of the pandemic, and what needs to be considered for that. But before we do that, we have Mr. Hudson here. Dr. Hudson has joined us. I want to give him a chance to introduce himself, and then we'll get back to our questions. Dr. Hudson?
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me clearly? Great. So first, I'm Dr. William Hudson Jr., Vice President for Student Affairs at the Florida Agricultural and Mechanical University. I'm a two-time graduate of FAMU, and then a twice degree recipient from Florida State University. I serve as the Vice President for Student Affairs, covering 28 units. I'd like to say I take students from birth to employment, starting with our Child Development Center, working with infants to 5 years old, to the high school, our TRIO programs, from admissions, financial aid, recruitment here at the university, to our counseling center, residence life, student government, recreation center, disability services. Even the police department falls under me, and then the career center, so we help them go into employment. So that's just a brief, because I know we want to get to the questions.
Thank you, Dr. Hudson. Thank you very much. Okay, so I want to pose this question that I mentioned before, and I'll reiterate to Ms. Peters. How has the college admissions process changed over the past 2 years, and what should people be thinking about now to adapt to that change?
So first, hello to my friend, Dr. Hudson. We met many years ago. I don't know if he remembers, but it's good to see you, sir. It's good to see you. My whole family is attached to FAMU. So, I can't ever get too far from FAMU. In the last 2 years, and I kind of want to give just a quick little background. I know I only got a couple minutes. But overall, which is why I'm really excited about this particular program, is there's been a struggle recruiting and retaining well-prepared Black men for college. And this is happening all over the country. And it's, to me, become even more noticeable and more significant as a result of the pandemic. So what are the big changes relative to admissions? One, I'd say, for HBCUs, and I don't know if it's a result of, well, it's not necessarily a result of the pandemic, but it's a result of the times that we're in, we're popular. Students want to intentionally are choosing HBCUs. It used to, a lot of it would be because of legacy. My grandparents went there, I went there, and that kind of stuff. The students are intentionally, more and more, I talk to students who their whole, K through 12 might have been in a majority serving institution, but they are very intentionally, because of Black Lives Matters and all these things that have happened in the past couple of years, very intentionally choosing HBCUs. So from what I can see, there's a resurgence in the interest at HBCUs. So that makes us more competitive. That makes us more desirable. Over the past couple of years, for a lot of reasons, tuition and costs have gone up. housing costs have gone up. So while we're even more competitive, it's tougher to go to institutions because particularly if you're talking about a university or a private institution, maybe not as much so for a state institution, but if it's an HBCU, there's definitely more interest in competition. The other thing I'd say as a result of the pandemic is it's a good thing and sometimes it's a challenge. There are more virtual opportunities. So I know at Clark Atlanta University and for many of our institutions for most of 2020 and some of 2021, our students had to take courses virtually. That was a challenge for many of our students. And institutions had to be prepared to buy laptops and get them mailed to students and get Wi-Fi connections to students that were in neighborhoods and homes that they didn't have that kind of connection. So that's been a challenge and that continues to be a challenge. So yeah, technology and but the benefit to that is it's in my mind, again, I'm talking about HBCUs more specifically. It has required our HBCUs to move to the 21st century and have and start to look at more courses that are available and programs that are available online. For the most part, with the exception of one or two, and just maybe one or two programs within those institutions, a lot of our institutions didn't have online programs, but over the past few years, it's really required many of them, and many of them have done really, really well, to have these offerings and these hybrids. So students are able to, be in Minnesota and actually attend an HBCU and not physically have to go there. And then the last thing I'd say is that, when you're talking about looking at colleges, I would encourage high school students and parents. There are many more companies and benefactors that are really looking to help when I say I'm talking about our young men and young women of color, to get to have these opportunities in higher education. And they're starting them in the high school. So to look at your high school programming and within your school district and see, what kind of early programs like in coding. We're working with Google right now, and we're working with the Atlanta Public School System, and they're doing what they call breakbeat coding and teaching this at the 8th grade level. So by the time they come to college, not only do they have a skill and a talent that is profitable for them, our kids are much more entrepreneurial and thinking than they used to be. It really helps with the college experience. So those are the kind of things I think relative to the pandemic that have kind of really changed. But the biggest thing I actually think is more competitive. And I really want to lean on my colleagues, Dr. Hudson and Miss, I don't have her name in front of me, the great from Spelman College, Jalia, there you go, who can really expound on that. So that's where I'd start with that.
Dr. Hudson, please share any insights.
Oh, I was gonna always ladies first. We're gentlemen. So I thought I was gonna give the ladies an opportunity to chime in.
I totally agree with everything that she just said. I definitely remember when the pandemic hit and we had to, go online, and with the public speaking course, my students were like just lost. They just, because we were, especially that type of class, it's very interactive. They would get up every, class and actually speak, right? So it was very challenging even for me to transition to, now they have to do it on, send me a video. So it is very different. Now I'm not in the enrollment part, of college, but I do know that, like she said, there's online availability now. So students have it. It's more competitive, as she said, but students have a broader. It's broad for them now. So now they can be in another place and attend an HBCU. So just prepare. If you want to go to an HBCU, which is a beautiful choice, I think it's the best choice. They were created for us. even if you do it online or you're able to do it in person, just prepare yourself and do those things that are necessary so you can get in, because like she said, it is more competitive, and it's a beautiful experience. So prepare yourself.
Well said. Dr. Hudson?
Yes, and I'll be very brief. They both of them are absolutely correct. Um, there's been a lot of change in the state systems now. HBCUs are being compared to their counterparts in the PWIs, and they're also looking at performance-based funding. So they're basing funding on graduation rates, retention rates, research dollars, employment after graduation, the amount of money that they make after graduation. There are certain requirements that state legislatures are designating for those state institutions, and they're also looking at rankings and U.S. News and World Reports and all of those types of things. So there's a lot more pressure on HBCUs to perform and graduate students. The pandemic, we always look at the positive aspects of it. We did get more companies donating to our colleges, which we are very thankful for. But the offset to that is, if you're a state institution, they also looked at that income as a substitution for some of the state subsidies that they provide or funding that they provide for our students. So the preparedness of students is going to be something that everyone's going to be looking at, college preparedness over these next couple of years. Because students have transitioned to online learning for a couple of years, and some of our students don't do well in that type of environment. And so looking at that and providing other alternatives for education as well. I've seen a lot of students look at the cost and decide to go to community college first and then transfer to the HBCUs. And so that's another avenue to cut costs, but also continue their education and a different pathway to their universities of choice. And so as we look at that and we think about our Black males, we're really going to have to engage them early on, which is something that I really commend the 100 Black men for doing, having been at your conferences and participating, engaging those young men early and often, getting them involved in summer programs on our campuses, exposing them to the different majors is going to be something that we're going to have to increase so that they can be college prepared, and encouraging parents to make sure that all students, males and females, specifically persons of color, engage in math and science all the way through high school. And so one of the things that I've been doing and I've been on my soapbox about is dual enrollment. I know we look at AP as being a great avenue for students, but it's also a lot of pressure on students. And so I deal with mental health. That's my background. And I look at AP and see the students who struggle and try to deal with performing in those classes that could have taken dual enrollment and had 60 credits already going towards college. So looking at different mechanisms to help our families and our students is going to be a priority over the next several years.
Very good insight. Some of the things that came out of that are around preparedness. It's one thing to want to go to college, something very different than to be prepared to go. And that means accessing your resources, having the conversations, and making sure that you're leveraging your academic resources as well. Like Dr. Hudson just said, math and science, just because you don't have to take very many of them does not mean that you should bow out from them. And dual enrollment is always a saving grace because it saves money and time. So thank you all for answering that question for us. But going in terms of the money part of it, because we know that college is a place that is a little bit different because now you have to pay to stay. And so what I want to do for Dr. Hudson, if you could advise parents on what to take advantage of in terms of resources for paying for college in this current climate, what would you advise parents to consider?
A couple of things. So first, if you can do it, try to have money set aside to help with college expenses. The hope is that scholarships and other type of financial resources from financial aid are available. However, you don't want to solely rely on that because many of the resources are based on income. And so if your income is at a level where you won't be eligible for the Pell Grant or other grants that are available, and even some scholarships now, many scholarships, many of the best scholarships like Thurgood Marshall and UNCF are income based. So setting aside funds, no matter how small, starting that and establishing a nest egg for students to go to college is strongly recommended. But then also research. A lot of the scholarships that are out there are available to students, particularly students of color. From if you wear glasses, if you're left-handed, there are scholarships for every type of entity. And so students have to do the research. Parents have to also be aware and do research and apply early, because the early bird gets the worm, but in this case, the early bird gets the bag, and that's the bag of money. So they have to apply early. They have to apply to as many as they can, and don't be afraid to ask for funds from your local areas. One of the things that I harp on with our alumni and our constituents is that as African Americans, we spend the most money in this economy. We should not be afraid to ask the agencies where we spend money to donate money back to our HBCUs and to our students. From the supermarket to Best Buy to Walmart to any of those places where you spend money, the car dealership, wherever you go to spend money, they should have a program where they offer scholarship opportunities for students. If they don't have one, recommend it. As much money as we spend in this economy, they should be donating back into the economy through our students and through our HBCUs.
Well said. You have not because you ask not, and the early bird gets the bag. Yes,
I always say, a closed mouth doesn't get fed. I can't tell you how many times in a week in parent sessions I say that, and parents will come up to me and their student will have a 3.8. And they're crying. I was like, well, who have you asked for scholarship dollars? Raise your hand. I say this to continuing students. Dr. Hudson, you are so on point. We are always, our parents are so quick to make sure their kid has every hairstyle, clothes, whatever it is they need to look good. But they haven't worried about how they're going to pay the bill. Last year, HER funds, CARE funds, pretty much every student that was enrolled in an HBCU got money, got plenty of money, whether they were Pell eligible or not. I can't tell you how many, both undergrad and grad students came back to me the next semester and said, I need money. I said, we just gave you $1,500. So what did you do with it? So I agree. It's something that parents have to start thinking about early. I know Miss Celeste with her boys and her background in basketball and her 3 young boys, she's already preparing them for scholarships and what they do, whether they're athletic or whether they're academic. It has to start early, parents. And then if you didn't start early, don't be disheartened. Just ask someone.
Thank you for that.
Wait, before fee cancellation deadline, the day before we're purging you, ask, when you get that tuition, you added those classes and you see what that bill is, ask about payment plans. A lot of schools, many schools will do payment plans that did in the past. So it's just a matter of asking your resources. And I just had to, that's probably something I talk about daily.
It makes sense. What makes dollars and cents, right? Because you have to, again, pay to stay in school. And I would love, Tamara, if you had any insights you want to share about what you've experienced, please feel free to share that as well.
In terms, honestly, they're on it. You guys have said so much. And the one thing I will just second is starting early. And I think that's one of the challenges that I see again with our community. We sometimes end up behind the 8 ball just in terms of, our awareness of what to do, versus, some of our other counterparts who have these conversations early on. And, it's a fact that everyone's going to college. And so it's just kind of like there's already a system in place. At some point we do want to be the one to break the cycle and start something new, for our families and our children's and the next generations to come. So I would just reiterate starting as early as possible.
Thank you. Very, very important. I want to switch gears just a bit because we mentioned the pandemic implications earlier around admissions, but we haven't talked about how they impacted us in terms of our mental health. And that is a huge part of the collegiate experience, because if you're not well with yourself, you can't perform well in other places, right? And so, Jael, I would love for you to give us some insights around considering how the pandemic has, shined a neon light on mental health for us these days. How would you recommend students monitor their mental health given what's happening right now in society?
Yeah, that's really good. And it's so vital. So my students, my niece and nephews, they're in college as well, right? Just students, whatever school they go to, not just Spelman. But it's important for you all to make sure that you are healthy mentally, because students put a lot of pressure on themselves, a lot. And when I talk to them, I'm like, okay, calm down. Number one, just breathe. Everything's going to be okay. Say all is well. And they say all is well, right? So make sure that you are focusing on your mental health as well. What are some things you can do to do that, right? Find someone that you can talk to that you trust. That's very important. You have to talk, and especially our young men, because we know women will talk, but a lot of times young men won't and men won't. So it's important for you all to find someone that you trust that you can talk to, because you're not alone. You're not alone in this. And sometimes you can feel like you're so alone when you're not talking to other people and having that safe space. So find somebody that you trust that you can talk to lighten the load for you. Don't put so much pressure on yourself, because I know a lot of my students would say, well, she's in this club, she's in that club, and I feel like I'm supposed to be doing that. Don't compare your path to anyone else's path, young ladies and young men, because your path is perfect for you. So a way to keep yourself healthy mentally is by staying in your lane and making sure that you are doing what's true in your soul and what's in your heart to do. When you're picking a major, I tell my students this all the time, because this adds stress. When you are doing something that you do not want to do because your mother or your father told you this is what you should do, it causes stress. And I see it all the time. When my students are not being true and authentic to who they are and what's in their soul to do, they're miserable, right? So another way to keep your mental health in check is make sure you are in school doing what you love. You may not always know. Sometimes it takes some of us longer to figure out, and that's okay too. Your journey is your journey. So find someone to talk to, major in something that you feel like is going to fulfill your soul. Because if you're doing it just for money, there are people with PhDs that are broke. So it's not about that. It's about the authenticity and you following the path that when you were being formed in your mother's womb by yourself, God was shaping you and developing you to do a certain thing or certain things. So that's another way to keep the mental stress low. Also, develop a routine now. If you're in high school right now, start doing affirmations, right? Even like how they were saying, prepare yourself financially before college starts. Parents, start preparing your children mentally before they get into college, because that's a different world. So start preparing them mentally. Start practicing doing affirmations. I am worthy. I love myself. I deserve to go to school and get a great education. I attract a beautiful tribe, right? Start building up your spirit woman and your spirit man now before you get to college. Because again, that's a different world. So those, I don't want to talk too long, but those are just a few things that people can do to make sure that their mental health is in check. Don't put so much pressure on yourself. Your path is your path. So yeah, those are just a few tips that I would like to give.
Though few, but very salient and very, very critical. So thank you for sharing that.
You're
One of
so
the things that came, sure. One of the things that came to mind as I was listening to you is, where would they go on campus? And so, Dr. Hudson, if you can speak to counseling services a little bit about what they can provide to students, because as a former academic advisor, I've had students who are experiencing life. Life was happening while they were in college, beyond their college experience, right? And so, can you speak a little bit about, what the center will provide and what students can do to make sure that they're on the right path?
Absolutely. And just as you said, life happens. It's not a matter of if, it's when. The same thing with our safety. So you have to have guidelines and things in place to assist the students. And so with us, I know that the counseling center is available. We also have our student health center, and we also have disability services that also do testing and other counseling services there. And so our counseling center, one of the things that we did is we placed our counseling center in a facility where confidentiality is paramount. A lot of students are embarrassed, ashamed, afraid to go to counseling, as is the case for a lot of African American males in our society. Counseling and going to the doctor are really difficult items for us to partake in. And historically, that has been so. And so we try to make it easy for students by combining a lot of resources in one building. In our Center for Academic Success, where my office is located, we have a lot of different student support services here. So no one knows what you're coming into the building. That's the first step, making sure that the confidentiality is there. Also, informing students how to access the counseling center, whether it's online, via Zoom, or face-to-face. And I also encourage faculty members, if they have a student that they see is in distress, they can also walk them over to ensure that they get to the counseling center so we can provide services. Now, we have appointments that they can set up for follow-up to make sure that they receive the service ongoing, but we also have telehealth counseling where they can be at home and also get the services as well on their computer or via Zoom. So providing, this is something that has come about a lot recently, that HBCUs are taking the challenge on more, is establishing telemental health counseling so that students can have 24-hour access to counseling, 24-hour access to tutoring, all of the services, trying to increase the development of that, because students operate on a different time clock than some of us do. And it can't just be 8 to 5 anymore. You have to extend your hours for a lot of student services. If that means having a flex schedule with your staff, that's something that you have to consider now, because many people are doing it, even to the extent that many people are working from home for counseling services, financial aid, and other services, as opposed to coming to the office, because you want to get the best people to work with your students, but you also want to provide access at different hours. So I'll just leave it there so we can continue on with the conversation. But I think it's important that we have to be able to be flexible with the services that we're offering the students.
Indeed it is. I also want to just pinpoint something that's very critical for students who are listening to be aware of. When you're in college, you're creating a transcript. So when life does happen, things may in fact impact your performance in the classroom. And so as much as you're going to work towards your counseling center and other support services, make sure your academic advisor knows what's going on. Because that way you can get the exception to policy that you can always be granted based on your circumstance. And so when you're worried about your grades, go to your academic advisor to make sure that you're protecting your GPA, because you'll see momentarily those advanced degrees will require your undergraduate transcript. But before we get to that point,
I've got one more thing I want to reiterate.
Please.
Especially for this generation, social media. Social media has such a significant impact on this generation, well, everyone, when you look at what's being said by other people about people in their circle, it can have a severe impact on students' mental health. And so you have to protect your brand. You have to make sure that what you're putting on social media is conducive to how you want to be represented, but also your social groups have to also be conducive to what you want to represent you as well.
And that goes for enrollment. More and more we're looking at what's happening with social media. And we'll get, people send us information about a friend that they know is trying to go to the school, and we'll see this. And what I'm also seeing is that a lot of this stuff is ending up in disciplinary hearings. So, social media, Dr. Hudson said it best. It needs to reflect who you are, what your brand is, and not what someone else's is, and it will follow you. It's unfortunate. When I went to college, thank God there was no social media, and other than worrying about what my parents might find out, that was just about the extent of it. But it's in everything, and we use it vigorously for recruiting and for promoting the university and those things. So if you have a desire to one day to be in a fraternity or sorority, or to join any particular social club, just think about those things. And to go back to what JL said, those things are stressful. I see that impact students' mentality all the time, that what they did or what someone shared in social media causes a lot of stress. It's kind of like you've lost control of who you are to the world. So please be aware of that. And young people, start paying attention to that right now. Thank you, Dr. Hudson. That was such a good point.
It really was. It really was. And I would love to get your thoughts, Tamara, around what we're talking about now with social life and mental.
We lost him.
Oh.
Uh-oh.
I think he wanted you, though.
Yeah, I have a sense for where he was going, because talking about social media is big, and the impact that has. I think this is a very important conversation, and you're back.
But yes, I think that you were already on track, so you know where I was going with it. But just for the question itself, what are some of the challenges of balancing, the class experience with the personal life, mental health, all those things? Please continue.
Yeah. I will say this, when you look, I'm just so passionate about this, because it's so unfortunate, in my opinion, that we live in a society that doesn't quite fully grasp that the human body is a physical body, right? So we have our physical energy. We also have emotions, our emotional body, that's our emotional energy. We have a mind, a brain, we think, right? We have cognitive reasoning, cognitive processes. So we have a mental body, we have a mental energy. And so, we also have a spiritual energy, a soul, and I work with all 4 of those energy systems in my program. And unfortunately, I feel like in our society, it's not quite as well understood that all of these energy systems are so intricately linked, and they go together, they flow together. So what we like to do in our society, unfortunately, is compartmentalize, right? So it's like we've got our physical body, so we'll go for our annual checkup. We've got those, annual, quarterly visits, but we hesitate and are even embarrassed oftentimes to, do mental health checkups. I wish it was such that we had to have our annual, or it was recommended to have at least your annual mental health checkup just as much as your annual physical, because that's how important mental health is. Mental health is on a continuum. It's not just, if you have a mental health disorder, then you should go see somebody. No. It's just like our physical health. You have your prevention, right? Where you're exercising, going to the gym 3 times a week, 4 times a week to prevent illness, right? To get in shape physically. But what are you doing to get in shape mentally? How is how is your mental fitness? How is your mental conditioning? How do you navigate stress? Stress is the number one underlying cause of pretty much every disease. It's stress. Well, what is stress? Stress is anything that's overwhelming to our system that we don't quite know how to navigate. And still there are professionals here that specialize in helping individuals navigate stress. And so, that is one of the biggest things that I see, again, like you mentioned earlier, is the hesitancy or the embarrassment or the stigma that follows, seeing a mental health professional. And it's really just so unfortunate that we've created a narrative that makes that be the case, versus having a narrative about, hey, we should do mental health checkups because we can prevent ourselves from becoming physically ill by taking care of our mental body. And so, that's just something that I feel very, very passionate about. Obviously, it's so important to me that we take the initiative within and exercise the sovereignty over our own bodies and really understand our human makeup. Everything, and if nothing else, I will definitely leave with this. Everything that you do, whatever the doing is, right? Any action you take, any, job you choose, any, decision you make, any thing that you do is a byproduct of what you're thinking and what you're feeling. So, again, simple example, when you're hungry, when your body is physically hungry, you go eat. So you have to understand that there is a connection between what we're doing and what we're thinking and what we're feeling. And so oftentimes we just focus so much on what we do that we forget that, well, what's dictating what I do? Where's that coming from? It's coming from the state of your mind, the state of your thoughts. And so really, really, really making sure that as you're navigating this high school experience, as you're stepping into your own, again, with social media, I work with a lot of students who, social media is a really big cause of stress in their lives because of the comparison syndrome. So I've got a whole program that I put together about, navigating through the comparisons and how you spend time alone, getting to know yourself. And everyone here has touched on that. And that's just so important that you really do, again, think of things in terms of preventing a disaster, so to speak, in terms of taking control over your mental and your emotional health, listening to your own inner voice, follow the things that speak to your spirit, and watch everything that you want in your life come right to you and fall in place because you're in line with your path and your authenticity.
Wonderfully said. Wonderfully said. Thank you very much for sharing that. Some of the things that I found myself imparting on students over my career were around their reluctance to see the counseling services. And I said, well, when your tooth hurts, you go see your dentist. When you can't see, you go to your optometrist. When your stomach hurts for 3 days, you see your doctor. Why would you not go and see someone when you're stressed out and depressed?
Absolutely.
And so, yeah, and so it's really important that that's something that students and parents are able to own and appreciate because the help is there. So thank you very much again for sharing that. We want to keep the ball rolling right now. Thank you very much for all your insight. But now I want to kind of open it up to all panelists to kind of give some thoughts around our next couple of questions. Because it's one thing for us to think about, okay, the next step is college, right? It can be, 4+ years. We know how that looks these days, 4.5, 5 years, 6 years. And thinking in terms of the trajectory of someone's career path, which in many respects requires an advanced degree. And so when you think about going through the undergraduate experience, what are some of the things that you would advise students to consider in terms of preparing for graduate school? So, or you can also think in terms of how did you determine your advanced degree and what went into that thought process? Please, anyone, popcorn style, feel free to share.
So first, if you think you want to go to graduate school, pay attention to your grades in
Yeah.
undergraduate. That's the first thing. Because you're not going to get in graduate school, or not a good one, if you have a 2.3 undergraduate cumulative GPA. So pay attention to it. And I always say it's easier, start high. If you start low, it's really difficult to get it back up. But if you start high, if you trip along the way, year 2 or 3, it won't hurt so much. The other thing I always say to our graduates, candidates, is if you've got a decent GPA, a 3.0, some schools will maybe look at a 2.8, 2.9, depending on the program. Graduate school should be about your passion. So you're figuring out, everybody was talking about that. You're figuring out in undergrad who you are, what you want to do. I always say, the biggest thing that people give you credit for when you get your undergraduate degree is that you started something big and you finished something big. So they know you know how to do it. But graduate school should be about what your passion is. What is your purpose? You've got to connect it to that, because graduate school isn't, just kind of rote. You've got to learn certain things like you do in undergrad, take certain courses depending on the program. But graduate school is really about your passion and where your trajectory, where you want to go in your future life. The last thing I'd say about graduate school is a closed mouth doesn't get fed. You should not pay for a graduate school totally by yourself. You should shop, have graduate schools negotiate for you, especially if you're a qualified student, and then be prepared to do some really tough work. That's what I'd say about graduate school.
I love that. I just want to piggyback off of that about being prepared. And here's the thing, even if you don't know yet that it's going to be required for you to go to graduate school, you're not sure yet exactly what you want to do, which is okay. But if you start strong, like she said, then the options are yours. Whatever you want to do, you will be prepared to do that. So even if you don't know, because I get a lot of that from my students, they're like, I don't know, and it's okay. But as you're figuring that out, and as life is revealing itself to you, and you're getting in tune with yourself, and you're figuring out, oh, what am I passionate about? What do I love? If you start strong and you start out with a great GPA, and like she said, just in case life happens, because it's inevitable, you will already have a really great foundation. So if you do make that decision, my loves, you will have what you need to get into a graduate school. So that will be that's my 2 cents.
Okay. Any others?
I will just add that, even when you look at the competitive nature of the job market, you want to give yourself every advantage possible, right? In terms of, the candidates for the position. And so, more and more, I'm hearing with my colleagues even, that having that graduate degree on your resume is attractive. So, always, to reiterate what the ladies are saying, come out the gate, start strong, because oftentimes, the degree that you choose for undergrad, as you continue to evolve, it may or may not even speak to you in the same way years down the road. And you do want to, when you step into a different season of life, realize, oh, you know what, I'm a little bit more passionate about this over here. I need to go to grad school for that. And so allowing yourself to have done the work early on to prepare yourself for whatever path you choose to take at that point can only help you. So yeah, absolutely. Come out the gate strong, be prepared for anything, and just enjoy the journey.
Well said yet again. I want to stick with you, if you can, for a minute, Tamara, around what we alluded to earlier, but didn't really drive home about social life and the experiences that students are having. With your background and your experience as an athlete, and where the current climate is around student athletes, name, image, and likeness, being able to be more marketable and having some benefits around their skills or what have you and their talents. Can you talk a little bit about what it means to find resources that benefit you as a student while you're in college, and what that athlete life / student life balance looks and feels like?
Yeah, absolutely. I will say this, one thing that was driven home to me in college as an athlete, and I hear it from other athletes too that went to different schools, is that, our coaches did a phenomenal job of helping us understand that we had a unique advantage in a certain kind of way of being on a stage. So there was a community of people that, would come to see our games, that would come to watch us play, that knew our names. And our coaches would always reiterate, don't take that for granted. Utilize the resources that are available to you, because there's a network of people that are happy to support you because, of the things that you're representing, for this university. And the thing about that is that's not exclusive just to student athletes. When you're on campus, it's very different than when you graduate campus and you're out on your own. When you're on campus, you have an intimate network of professionals, professors and student services counselors and, teachers. Everyone is there to help you succeed. So how could you not take advantage of that? I mean, you've got a built-in network of people who are happy to assist you in getting to the next stage of your life. And so I would say, whether you're a student athlete or not, if you're a student on a university campus, you better take advantage of all the professionals around you that are there to help you succeed in your life. And so that's definitely something that, again, closed mouths don't get fed. And I love this group because that's my phrase too. I'm like, you better ask, worst thing that they can say is no. And at least, well, can't go down that path to get it. Let me go down another path. And so open your mouth, be bold in your ask for what you want, and back it up. Back it up, back up the goods. And so, just making sure that you're showing up in such a way that, you're taking advantage of every opportunity. You're staying, being proactive is the name of the game. Come out the gate early, stay on top of your stuff, and take advantage of the opportunities that you have to have professionals assist you along the way.
Thank you for that great insight. We're going to go into another question, but before we do that, I want to make sure that our guests and audience feel free to ask questions. So if you do have questions that have come to mind per our conversation, please do share those with us in the chat, and we'll make sure we can kind of filter and see which ones we are able to get to. We can't get to all of them, I'm sure, but if you do have burning questions, please do put those into the chat. But moving into a final question for our panel, when you think about a few things that every student should do in college, if you had to pinpoint 2 or 3 things that you just have to do, what would those things be?
I don't mind starting. So I will say this. So I'm from Illinois and I went to Jackson State. Of course, and I'm from Illinois, like suburbs of Chicago. So I needed to go to an HBCU. When you go to school, whether you've been around Black people all your life or not, it's still a different world. College is a different world. And what I would say to any young lady or any young man is, when you get there and it's not maybe what you thought, or you're not meeting your tribe yet, be patient with the process. Because my freshman year, I called my mom because I just was not used to some things that were happening, because I grew up in a bubble. So I wasn't used to certain things and girls acting a certain way and just stuff, right? And I remember I called my mom and I was like, Mom, I have to come home. I can't do this. My mom was like, you're not coming home. She said, so get involved. She said, get involved in some things and it'll change your experience. So I was like, okay. So I was obedient. I got involved. I ran for Miss Sophomore. I became Miss Sophomore. I tried out for the cheerleading team. I became a cheerleader. And because I started getting involved, I started meeting more people that were more like-minded, who had the same goals and ideas and dreams and the same drive that I had. and it made my college experience better. And I literally had the most extraordinary time at Jackson State. I am so glad that my mom did not allow me to come home because I didn't know. So that's what I would give to anyone. That's my offering. When you do go away to school, because you've never been away like that before, you've never had that type of freedom, you know, more likely than not. You've never had, you know, nobody's making you get up in the morning. Nobody's making you meeting all people from all walks of life. Do not give up. Give it a chance because it's a new experience. So hang in there, get involved, start meeting people and meeting community, and it'll really make your experience so much better. So that will be my offering.
Well, I just got to back that up, Jal, with telling the parents that.
Yes.
Parents, let them get through it. Don't jump to the rescue day one. When they're not getting along with the roommate, don't demand a room change. That's not what my daughter wants. She's used to having this. The last, you know, I don't know, maybe it's because I'm getting older. It might be. But what I want to tell the parents, what she's saying to the students is so on point. But it doesn't work unless you've got a parent like she did that said, no, you're not coming home. Get engaged with some good things. Get out of the dorm. Stop doing hair in your room and go out and walk the campus and go to the library and join a study group, or, you know, do some community service or go to chapel or something constructive. But, you know, don't come to the rescue when they all, like we all did when we first went to college. It was a shock. Wherever we came from, college is a shock. If you've never, you know, once you know, wherever, however you started in high school, whatever. I was in a bubble, came to an HBCU, same thing. I wanted to go home. My father's like, I am not bringing you all the way back home. So figure it out. But what I just have to say that to parents, because I see so many parents out of love, out of protection, you know, worried about their son or daughter. You got cell phones. You can see that they're okay. And then if you can't get to them, just reach out to, you know, the campus, the residence life, or whoever to go do a check on them. But or encourage them to use the services that are there. Help them to find the services that are there. But I just the other side of that, I had to, yes, you're telling the students that, but it doesn't work if the parents don't come run to the rescue right away. And the other thing I'd say to students is study. You're there to get an education. So you're there to figure out who you are, to get friends, to, you know, life changes and all that. But kind of go back to this GPA thing. It's real important to do your classwork. So find people, if you're not a good studier, find somebody that is. You know, help someone that'll help you with those habits. If you're not somebody that gets up, you know, on time in the morning, then see if your roommate, you know, will set the alarm for both of y'all and get you out of the bed so that you get in the habit of things. Study, have fun, because it is one of the best times in your life, and take care of yourself mentally and physically, just like we've been saying in this group, and you'll be okay. And then once you get past the freshman year, I have a great nephew that's going to Clark Atlanta University, and the first smart kid in his first semester, he's calling me every day. And Sharice, I want to drop out of this class. I want to do this. I want to change my majors, you know, smart kid. And I kept saying to him, no, you're going to stick it in. Come talk to me about that later. He came to see me just the other day, right after homecoming. He's in his sophomore year. He is happy. He's found his tribe. He's doing well in school. He enjoyed homecoming. And he was telling me, you know, I just didn't feel this way last year. I said, because you stuck it through. So stick it through, and parents help them to stick it through.
I will second all of that, because the one thing I would say to keep in mind in your college experience is that everything that you're experiencing is custom designed for your growth. And so if it's challenging, great, because it's asking me to stretch.
Yes.
You know, instead of running from the challenge and expecting a cushy life, life is not going to be perfectly cushy all the time. And how you show up to the challenge is what matters the most, because you're forever going to be challenged, whether it's academically, in relationships, on the job, doesn't matter. So understanding that you are in a season, that college experience is a grooming season for you to start to see, okay, how am I? Who am I? Who am I becoming? So no matter what it is you're facing, you got a roommate from, the worst roommate on earth, great, bring it. How am I going to show up? How am I going to navigate this? Because right now it's a roommate, but in 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, it could be my boss. How am I going to navigate a boss that I don't get along so well with? You start to see, am I someone that just runs? Am I a runner? Am I a quitter? Is that who I am? Okay, great. Be that. But you also could be something so much more, and so take advantage of those moments. Just know everything is custom designed for your growth and your evolution. Approach it as such, and just decide how you want to show up.
Custom design is always a great design.
And I
Dr.
guess,
Hudson, did you go? Okay, I was about to say, did you go, Dr. Hudson?
yeah, well, I'll close it off then and say, what's meant for you is meant for you. No one else can dictate what you can be or what you can do or what you can accomplish. At any of our HBCUs, students can discover who they can become, and they can be prepared for life, not just academically, but life experiences. The hardest part is their time management. The difference between our HBCUs and what other institutions do, they come to us, we innately believe in their abilities. When they go to other places, they have to prove themselves.
Yeah.
They have nothing to prove to us. We believe in them, but it's an 80-20 rule. 80% the student, 20% the institution. We're going to provide what's necessary for you, but you're going to have some accountability to do what needs to be done. No excuses. We're going to give you the mentorship. We're going to give you the academic preparation. That's why for all of the lawyers, doctors, engineers, educators, anyone in the professional realm, the majority of them, their college of origin was an HBCU, and it prepared them for this global economy. We're going to do that because we believe in you and we know your potential. You are our future, and we want to help you get to where you want to be. But parents and students, we want to make you part of our families. And as you know, with families, there are ups and downs, ebbs and flows. Though we may do things internally, nobody from the outside can talk about us or say anything negative about what we do. And we want to continue that. All of us have great legacies. We want you to continue those legacies by sending us your students and letting us nurture and prepare them for this global society. Thank you, guys.
Wow. Again, I hope everybody was able to soak up all that knowledge and all that experience that was just given to everyone. I want to thank everyone personally on the panel first and foremost for taking the time out of your busy schedules. You all have very busy schedules, and I'm so glad you all were able to take a small portion of your day to help us with our mission to reach out to these youth and to tell them the importance of getting ready for college. I know a lot of people, and I know we mentioned it tonight, a lot of people think it is unattainable. It's very attainable. I know they have that app. I think it's like one HBCU app or something along those lines where you can apply to multiple colleges at once. And that's a great tool. So again, I'm hoping that everybody was able to get what they needed tonight. I keep saying your name wrong. Is it Tamara or Tamara?
It's Tamara.
Tamara. I don't know anybody. Well, I don't know that many people that play anything professionally. So it is an esteemed pleasure to meet you and to hear from you and to hear your experience, especially with as you speak about the different energies and the different ways that people could heal and work throughout what they have going through. I was in Tallahassee 2 hours away from you in Gainesville. So, and I've been to Gainesville plenty of times. So I know that that experience and that culture alone, even though it was a PWI, I know that experience culture alone was a great experience. Jael, I have a daughter who has aspirations to go to Spelman. So so and also she did the program this past summer. I can't think of the name of it, but she did a summer program there, and I know she enjoyed it a lot. So I know the culture is I know the culture at Spelman is very dynamic. So and I'm happy of the mission that you all have at Spelman. Vice President Peters, I actually was about to apply to Clark for my MPA program. My
But
mentor.
I'm hearing a but.
Yes, it didn't work out with my schedule, so that's the only reason why.
Well, we're gonna have to work around that. We're gonna have to, you know, and just really quickly, we are launching an online MPA certification.
Wow.
Yes, online. So just give me a buzz and let's talk about it.
No, definitely.
And look, a closed mouth doesn't get fed, so you know we can talk scholarship dollars as well. There we go.
Seriously, and also one of my mentors, of course, is a vice president at Clark Well, Marshall Taggart.
Oh,
So, yeah.
all right,
Yeah.
I'm a co-advisor on the Collegiate 100 that we brought to the campus. So Marshall's a good guy. He's brings a lot of value added to Clark Atlanta University.
Yes.
So tell Marshall I said hello from his frat brother.
All right.
I may if he's not watching, I'll make sure that he definitely knows. And Dr. Hudson, I saved you for last because I am a graduate of the Florida Agriculture and Mechanical University. Also, the co-chair of the Myriad 100 is also a 2-time graduate of Florida A&M. He went to Florida A&M Law, and he went to Florida A&M undergrad for SBI. And also, I don't know if he mentioned it in his bio, but our moderator is also an alumni of FAMU, and then he matriculated to Harvard to get his master's in I believe in education, if I'm not mistaken. So if I'm wrong, I hope you forgive me. But yes, so everything that you mentioned about students at FAMU, we are living testaments. We all came from the state of Florida. I'm from South Florida, the West Palm Beach area. Troy is from Jacksonville, and Dr. Gilbert is from Mariana, right across the way. So,
he home team then, Jackson County.
Yes, exactly.
Exactly. Tell Troy he need to call me.
I sure will. I sure will. So, again, everyone, this is amazing. This was great. I want to thank you all again, overall, for taking time out of your busy schedule to speak with us tonight, and all the panelists. I'm sorry, not our panelists, and all the people who were able to tune in. Thank you very much for tuning in. I hope you soaked up all this knowledge. This is being live streamed on the Emerging 100 South Metro Atlanta YouTube page and on the Facebook page. So if you have to relook at this, or if you missed something and you want to go back, please go ahead and just go to our YouTube page and you'll be able to watch this over again. Please. And on top of that, all the panelists, if it's okay with you all, we would like to ask you all, not just with the Myriad 100 Mentor Program, but with the actual overall chapter of the 100 Black Men in South Metro Atlanta, if we can, in the future, have you all back to, whether it's a token of appreciation or whether it's another panel or whether, it's some way that you can reach out and, help with our youth and what we have here.
And Jared, if there's a way to give our contact information to anyone that wants to reach out to any of us, I think I certainly would like to share that email, my email information or contact information. Absolutely. And I just got to say, this panel, it was just really good vibes and good.
Yes.
I had a tough week this week, and it's only Tuesday. So listening to you tomorrow and to you, Jael, for really, you guys have spoken to my soul and telling me to reclaim some of that emotional power back. So it was a great session. It was a great session.
Yeah. Wow. And I just want to say this to the students really quickly that are watching. Just remember that you're more than enough. Like validation is for parking. You don't need anyone to validate you.
I love
You
that.
validate yourself, right? That's very important. We're telling you this because we love you. You are more than enough. You don't have to compare yourself to anyone, not anybody on social media. I'm an actress. All the pictures are Photoshop, y'all. It's fake. People are not really living how they, okay? So focus on you, baby. It's you. You have this. You can do this. You got this. You are deeply loved. Reach out to us. Utilize. You have five, six dope, amazing people on here. Utilize your resources. As the theme of the night is, a closed mouth does not get fed. So utilize us. I'm Jael the Great. All of my social media is Jael the Great. Email me, y'all. JaelTheGreat@gmail.com. My website, Jael the Great. My Instagram, DM me, Jael the Great. My Instagram is amazing, by the way. So just DM me. And we're here. We are here for you. So utilize us, because I'm gonna utilize them. I need them too. It takes a village, even as an adult. So
does anybody else have a social media handle that they want to give before we end the night?
I don't have a hand. Well, I'm on Instagram. Easy to find. Sharice Peters. I don't know what I handle, but you can find me.
Yeah, you just put us all on blast, dating us out. So I'll just expose it. But I'm at Rattler VP.
Oh, well, see, I gotta get one. I gotta come up with something.
Sharice, get your students. Hire a student
to do it for me. I will.
Your resources.
Hey, that's the smartest thing I did.
Get Johnny
hired
Suri
them.
to do
So to keep them from bothering me about extra financial aid, I put them to work all over campus. We have students working to help them supplement their income, but also give them the on-the-job training that'll get them prepared for going to the world of work. So hire a student for any position you got that you don't have to go outside. That's OPS dollars instead of salary dollars.
That's right.
And get and Miss Peters, get Dr. Johnny Suri to do it. He's the closest. He'll clean it up for you.
Since he became doctor, he's a little bit more pricey, so we have to work with that.
Oh man. Well, again, everyone, as you said, this has definitely been good vibes. I want to thank everybody one last time for joining, and I want to thank you all for speaking to us tonight. And with that being said, you all have a great one.
Stay blessed, everyone.
Take care, everyone.
Yes.
Thank you so much.